Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestle News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk a little bit about Impact Wrestling. Let's talk about Moose. Now, of course, Moose has recently re-signed with Impact Wrestling, so don't get too worried. I know you can see the picture of him on the screen there and the WWE logo, which might lead to some people being slightly concerned that Moose is going to be leaving Impact, but he's not. He's not going to be leaving Impact Wrestling anytime soon. Of course, he recently just signed a new 2-year contract with Impact Wrestling for a significant amount of money, more money than he was making before, and he is going to be sticking around with Impact Wrestling for the near future, for the foreseeable future anyway, for the next 2 years. But when we were covering Moose this whole time, talking about him and Impact, was he going to re-sign? Was he going to go to WWE? Was he going to go to AEW? Of course, his contract was up in June last month, and there was discussion that he was going to be leaving. Would he be re-signing? Eventually, he did re-sign, but I did mention at the time, and it's proven to be accurate, I did mention at the time that I was certain, almost certain, that at the very least, the WWE would be interested in Moose. Now, why did I say that at the time? We will get into the report in a second, but why did I say that at the time? Well, again, if you look at someone like Moose, he ticks every single box that WWE looks for. He's a former NFL player, so he's got that athletic background, which WWE loves. We know WWE has a bit of a bias towards people that have just been professional wrestlers their whole life and they've gone up on the indie scene. If you've got a legitimate sporting background, whether that's the NFL, whether that's the NBA, whether that's strongman competition, amateur wrestling, you name it, they love that because that's the story they can tell, and they can tell to all of the media. We have real athletes come into WWE. That's where real athletes come. It's just like transitioning from the NFL into WWE. We're not pro wrestling, we're WWE. So I look at that and I saw Moose and I said, absolutely, WWE would want him. Physically as well, you look at him, he's a guy, he's what, 6'6", something like that, maybe even taller. He's in physically the best shape of his life right now, far better. If you look at the early days of when Moose came into Impact Wrestling in 2016, the Moose you see now, physically, it's night and day. Physically, he's in the best shape of his life right now. His matches, over the course of the last 12 months or so during the pandemic, Moose has had the best matches of his career. Whether that's against Kenny Omega at Against All Odds, whether that's against Rich Swann at Sacrifice, whether that's in the Hard to Kill 6-man tag team match earlier this year. Moose is just having great match after great match. Everything's starting to click when it comes to Moose. So again, you put that all together and his promos have improved. They're still not there yet, I don't think, but they are improving. You look at all of that. You put all of that together, especially, again, his look, his physique, his NFL background. You said that's a Vince McMahon dream. That's exactly the kind of profile that WWE is looking to recruit. So I said that at the time, and I know some people said, well, there are some, allegations in the background. Again, we'll touch on that in a report in a second. But I said at the time, there is no way that WWE aren't interested in someone like Moose. And we know that because they've signed quite a few people from Impact Wrestling recently, whether it's Taya Valkyrie, whether it's the Rascals. I mean, the list goes on and on, doesn't it, of the names that WWE have signed from Impact Wrestling over the years. Karrion Kross, etc., etc., etc. So there's no way WWE wouldn't be interested, and AEW for that matter as well. Well, was proven to be correct because a report came out yesterday that did actually confirm that WWE were very, very interested in signing Moose. Now, it would appear that WWE was ready to make a play for Impact Wrestling star Moose. According to a report by Fightful Select, this is reported yesterday, WWE was interested in signing the former self-proclaimed TNA World Heavyweight Champion as his contract approached expiration earlier this summer. As I mentioned, his contract was set to expire last month in June. Now, according to Fightful sources, WWE was interested in Moose for both NXT and potentially the main roster, with even some talk of Moose actually coming in and bypassing NXT in favor of going straight to Raw and SmackDown, which again shows you how high they were considering Moose's potential to be, and how high they thought this guy's going to be great. He's exactly what we need right now. That doesn't happen a lot. It has happened on occasion, mostly for people that were in WWE before, whether your names like John Morrison, etc. But other names, AJ Styles, Mike Kanellis, I mean, there might be some other ones, but frankly, it's very rare. You get signed to WWE, you go to NXT, you go through the NXT system, and eventually you get called down, called down to the main roster, not called up, called down to the main roster of Raw SmackDown. And the fact that WWE were considering, look, we really want to sign Moose, and also, we're not going to have him in NXT. Not that he's too good, but they just thought he can make an impact straight away, pun intended, but he can make an impact straight away. Let's get him straight on Raw. Let's get him straight on SmackDown. That shows you how highly WWE considered Moose to be, and they still do. Ultimately, an offer was never even made, though, by WWE, according to these Fightful sources, as Impact's offer to Moose proved enticing enough that he re-signed with Impact before a WWE offer could even officially be made, which is very interesting when you look at it. So Impact Wrestling, they knew. In the same vein that we spoke about it here on the channel, in the same vein that I've just laid it out just then, Impact Wrestling knew. WWE, they're going to make an offer. AEW, they're going to make an offer. We can't afford to let Moose's contract expire, because the moment that it does expire and legally he can actually speak to WWE or AEW, he's gone. He's gone, because they'll throw a lot of money at him and they'll say to Moose, come in, you can go, you don't even have to go into NXT, or they'll say, you can, a bit like they did with Karrion Kross, they can say, well, you can come into NXT, but it'll just be a year. It'll just be a year. You'll be on Raw, you'll be on SmackDown, you're making big money. We're returning to touring in July. Don't worry about it. You're going to be a big star for us. You fit perfectly as to what we're looking for right now. But Impact Wrestling knew we can't even afford to let it get there. We've got to re-sign Moose before his contract even expires. We've got to blow him away with an offer that his contract doesn't even expire, so legally WWE and AEW, they can't even talk to him. Now, obviously, I can already hear what you're probably saying here. There is no way that WWE and AEW didn't talk to Moose. I know officially and legally they probably weren't allowed to, but there's no way that feelers weren't put out by WWE or AEW, and there's no way that Moose wasn't speaking to intermediaries, you know, whether it's with WWE or AEW, of, when's your contract expire, Moose? Okay, well, if obviously officially, off the record, we'd be very interested in having you, and this is what we'd be kind of looking at, because that's what happens. That's pro wrestling, that's life. That's exactly what happens. So unofficially, I have no doubts Moose would have spoken to WWE and AEW for that matter, maybe some other companies as well. But ultimately, Impact Wrestling, they gave Moose a good offer, an offer that prevented him from his contract even expiring in the first place. So again, officially, WWE couldn't have those conversations with Moose. And again, that's smart. That's very, very smart. And I think it's a significant development for Impact Wrestling, because they've been stung multiple times by this. And ultimately, the power is in the hands of the talent. If the talent wants to go to WWE, or the talent wants to go to AEW, or the talent just wants more money, they can run down their contract. They don't have to sign anything that they don't want to. And ultimately, you could argue that Moose maybe has played a blinder here. He really might have. Again, we know he's re-signed with Impact Wrestling for 2 years. We know, according to these other reports, he's on a significantly larger amount of money than he was previously. And there's no doubt in my mind he is factored in. Somehow, some way, he is factored in centrally to plans within the company. Now, as it comes to Slammiversary, and again, this goes back to my point of I don't understand why it's not Moose versus Kenny Omega in the main event of Slammiversary, because again, you've just re-signed this guy and you've just put a lot of money into Moose. You've just invested heavily in Moose as an Impact Wrestling character. It says to me again, right, let's put the belt on him now. We've got him for 2 years and he's in his prime. Physically, he looks great. He's doing his best work. We know Kenny Omega is eventually going to drop the Impact World Championship. It's just a case of when. To me, that gives you the answer for the main event of Slammiversary. The fact that they're going Impact Wrestling with Kenny Omega and Sami Callihan, to me says Callihan ain't winning. Because for me, the only person, there's two people actually. There's two people that should be the ones, could be the one. And I don't want to go into this too much because I'm going to do another video about it. But there are two people that I think should be the one to beat Kenny Omega for that Impact World Championship, because that's a massive spot. That's a massive, massive spot. Whoever beats Kenny Omega for that Impact World Championship, they are made into a bona fide star in the world of Impact Wrestling when that happens. And there's two guys that could do it and should do it, in my opinion. And neither one of them is Sami Callihan, by the way. One is Moose. The other is Josh Alexander. They're the two guys. And even Josh Alexander, I would say, it's slightly a gamble because his contract expires in February next year. And it's up in the air whether he goes to AEW, reforms the North, or he stays in Impact Wrestling and gets this giant push as a world champion. I think that one's still being discussed right now. But, of course, when it comes to Moose, this is not the first time that WWE has expressed an interest in signing the former NFL star. He was reportedly approached by WWE as well as Impact and Lucha Underground back in 2016, following his departure from Ring of Honor. It was initially expected that Moose would sign with WWE and debut in the same NXT class as former NXT and WWE stars such as Aleister Black and Killian Dane. Instead, Moose signed with Impact Wrestling. Now, this was reportedly because WWE backed off their interest following past allegations of domestic violence when it comes to Moose. Now, again, this is when we spoke about in the past here on the channel. We spoke about, I said I thought WWE would be interested in Moose. Ultimately, I thought he was going to go because I thought, as we've seen time and time again, when WWE comes calling, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the Impact star leaves because it's more money, it's a bigger platform, it's a bigger stage, it's bigger exposure, it's everything, right? And it's a dream. It's a dream for a lot of people. So I thought Moose was going to be leaving. And there were some people, credit to you, in the comment section were saying, I don't know, they backed off once before because of the allegations of domestic violence. I don't think WWE had that into consideration at this point. That was, 5 years ago? And maybe WWE thought, look, we haven't heard anything else since then. He is in the best shape of his life. He's doing great work. He's coming into his prime. He's improved significantly. Now's the time. Now's the time. And Impact Wrestling, again, they were smart. They went, we can't afford to let his contract expire and then try and renegotiate. We need to negotiate now. And we need to sell him the project that is Impact Wrestling. We need to sell him, you're going to be the world champion. You're going to beat Kenny Omega. It's just going to happen in October at Bound for Glory. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. Fans are returning. They had to sell him the project, and they did. They did. So it's interesting to see that WWE were indeed interested in Moose. It's no surprise for me because, again, that's what I said multiple times on the channel. Not that I have any insider sources, just being a fan of pro wrestling. And if you just watch WWE television for the last 15 or 20 years, you'll know that you see Moose and you go, that's exactly the kind of person Vince McMahon and the WWE are looking for. So once again, it just goes to show what a big deal this was for Impact Wrestling to be able to re-sign Moose and to get that deal over the line. And it follows a recent trend when it comes to Impact Wrestling. Jordynne Grace, her contract was coming up. Impact managed to re-sign her. And again, I have no doubt in my mind, WWE would have been very interested in signing Jordynne Grace. And it's the same with Moose. WWE were interested, but Impact Wrestling managed to fight them off. So it goes back to my point that I've said before when it comes to Impact. Impact, it kind of has a misconception. They don't have a budget. Impact Wrestling, they haven't got a lot of money. They don't have a big audience. They're in a tiny studio in Nashville, Tennessee. They don't have a lot of money. And it's a bit of a falsehood, to be honest with you, because they do. They do have a lot of money. Anthem's a well-funded company. And it's just a case of convincing Anthem, is this money, this investment we're putting out, is it viable? And for Moose, obviously, the decision was yes. And I agree. I think it was. So very interesting, that story, once it came out yesterday. Now, speaking of Impact and AXS TV and Anthem, this is not some good news because Impact Wrestling only drew 69,000 viewers on AXS TV this past Thursday. Yes, only 69,000 viewers. This is according to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. Now, the show featured Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers defeating Sami Callihan, Moose, and Chris Sabin in the main event. Now, if that sounds low, it's because it is. The audience was the lowest in the history of Impact Wrestling, the lowest they've ever done on AXS TV. It was a record low. It was not good. The only other time the show averaged under 100,000 viewers was on September 8, 2020, when it went head-to-head with NXT and drew 78,000 viewers. So it was not good. Not good at all. In terms of the key 18 to 49 demographic, Impact scored a 0.02, which WrestleNomics noted is the third lowest of the history of the show on AXS TV. It's the lowest rating in the demo so far this year. The rating was down 33.3% from the 0.03 it scored the week before. Now, this number does include both live and same-day viewers, people who watched on DVR that day, and there is a bit of an explanation behind this, and I suppose a reasoning and something that Impact Wrestling can latch onto, and to be honest, it's probably the most likely reason why the number is so low. It was likely impacted by a glitch with the guide listing on some systems. Now, Impact Wrestling had issued a warning to fans this past Thursday, noting that there were tech issues with the guide listing, which caused the show not to appear correctly or be displayed in the wrong time slot. the error on those systems caused the DVRs not to record the show, and it might have dissuaded some fans from tuning in, thinking that it wasn't actually airing this week. Now, the audience was down 37.8% from the prior week. Year to year, the show was down 54.3% in total viewership, so over half. It's a significant reduction. Again, I think Impact will likely point to the tech issue, the tech glitch on a lot of systems. And this was something that was known going into the show. It was reported by PW Insider prior to the show last week that they were checking on their system. I think it was Mike Johnson was checking on his system. He went, wait a minute, there's no Impact Wrestling. I don't know where Impact Wrestling is. It's not on the TV guide. Subsequently, a lot of people said, yeah, it's not on my guide. It's incorrectly scheduled, or it's just not on there at all. And the fact that, again, they do count same-day DVR viewing as part of the viewership, Nielsen does go to explain that maybe if it didn't record on the DVR, that's significantly reducing numbers. Or if people check the TV guide, thought, oh, I'm going to watch Impact Wrestling tonight, and then check the TV guide, went, oh, it's not airing. Okay, I guess it's just not on this week for whatever reason, and then they move on, they don't watch it. So Impact Wrestling will likely look at that and say it's because of the tech glitch. But one must say here, I think it's fair to say, and again, when you're talking about a reduction this much, I mean, the prior week was 111,000 down to essentially 70,000. That's a glitch. That's a problem with the TV guide and all that kind of stuff. But it must be said as well, because we've spoken about this the last few weeks, the ratings haven't been great anyway. In terms of, for context for Impact Wrestling ratings, it's not fair to compare them to Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, or anything like that, or even NXT. In the context of Impact Wrestling, the numbers haven't been great anyway. The prior week, again, 111,000. The week before that, 111,000. Before that, 124,000. Bear in mind, earlier this year, they're doing 160,000, 170,000, even some weeks 180,000, all that kind of stuff. I mean, after No Surrender, they did nearly 200,000 viewers on AXS TV. Again, those were big numbers, and they are good numbers for Impact Wrestling. To the point now, again, with the 69,000, okay, let's ignore that with the glitch, but the prior week we spoke about it, 111,000, that's still not good, especially on the road to arguably your biggest pay-per-view of the year. And not arguably, it is the biggest pay-per-view of the year. It was last year for them, and coming off of Rebellion in April, which is the biggest pay-per-view that they've done in terms of buy rates, in terms of buys, in terms of streams, trends, whatever, every metric you can think of, that was the biggest pay-per-view they had done, most successful pay-per-view they had done, as Anthem had been owners of Impact Wrestling. And now, fast forward to July, you've barely got anyone watching the product, not just because of the glitch, but also prior to that, people, for whatever reason, just aren't watching. And this is meant to be a time where everyone's really excited about Impact. Everyone's really excited about Slammiversary and all of these WWE stars that are going to come over and debut or return to Impact, and possibly some New Japan stars and the AEW working relationship, and some Impact stars working Triple Mania and going to AAA and all that kind of stuff. All of that is going on, and yet for whatever reason, not as many people are watching the product as they were earlier this year. Forget about the glitch. Just in general, over the course of the last 6 weeks or so, something isn't connecting. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's because this footage has been in the can so long that people are just tired and they know it was taped 6 weeks ago or whatever. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the fact that fans are just tired of not watching a show which has no fans there. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Maybe fans are just tired of the Kenny Omega. Maybe the Kenny Omega experiment isn't working. I don't know what the answer is. You can let me know what you think in the comment section below. But something isn't working. And I did a video the other day talking about Impact, and I spoke about, for whatever reason, I couldn't really put my finger on it, but the build to Slammiversary this year just didn't feel as exciting or red hot as it did last year. And considering last year, this was in the height of the pandemic, and there were no fans, and there was so much confusion about what was going on, and life was crazy at the time. And if you're watching TV, you're watching live sports or cable news because you just didn't know what's going on in the world at that period of time. Now, fast forward a year later, there's more hope, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but for whatever reason, people aren't watching Impact Wrestling. Is that because of the night change? Now they're on Thursday nights, more people were going to watch on Tuesdays? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but not as many people are watching as they were earlier this year, and that's got to be alarming. Again, the glitch is the glitch. It happened, let's move on, but the concern has to be the last few weeks, the numbers haven't been good, and it's meant to be a time of the year that everyone's really excited about Impact Wrestling. And it's strange. It's very strange. Finally, I want to talk about Eddie Edwards because we spoke a few times here on the channel about what was going to happen with Eddie Edwards. Of course, he had appendicitis. He had to undergo surgery to remove his appendix. And there was a lot of discussion. Is he going to be ready? Is he going to come back? Is he going to be ready to come back to compete at Slammiversary later on this month? It looks like that would be the case. It looks like that would be the case. He spoke about his ordeal to Sports Illustrated and spoke about how Tommy Dreamer took him to the hospital. He was the only one allowed to go in because of the COVID pandemic and all that kind of stuff. He also spoke about, and I didn't, this is interesting. So he had an appendectomy, which again is when you have your appendix removed. And because of that, he missed the final television taping where he was scheduled to share the ring for a singles match against Kojima. Now, for Edwards, missing the match with Kojima was even more painful than the appendectomy. He said, quote, "I'm still pretty hot over it. I really enjoy working with him. We worked together years ago in Noah, and I was so happy we got to tag together in Impact. But it definitely irks me we weren't able to have that singles match. I really appreciate him reaching out and checking up to see how I was doing while I was out." Now, he spoke about W. Morrissey, and he spoke about, to me, it looks like W. Morrissey is going to be facing Eddie Edwards at Slammiversary because he said this, quote, "When you come to Impact, you've got to go through me. Morrissey has done a lot, and I look forward to seeing what he can do against me." He also spoke about wanting to face Kenny Omega eventually for the Impact World Championship. He said, quote, "We've seen some of the same shows together, but we've never wrestled each other in a singles match. And in a lot of ways, we took a similar path. We tried to do our thing on the indies. We both went to Japan. I got a chance to thrive in Pro Wrestling Noah, which is what he did in DDT. And then later in New Japan, he went on to win the IWGP title. I won the GHC title. To me, it's hard to deny that we've had career similarities." Now, he said, "I also want to be in the ring against the best. Right now, Kenny is one of the best. He's also our champ, and I'd love to be the guy to bring that title back to Impact. The stars haven't aligned yet, but hopefully it will happen." Now, as he mentioned, the plan is for him to return at Slammiversary, wrestle and compete at Slammiversary. This is what Edwards had to say, quote, "I want to do this at the highest level for as long as I can, and whether it's as a champion or not, I want to be the guy you associate with Impact Wrestling. When people return or come in like Morrissey, they want to test what they can do, go up against me, and we'll see what you can do. Guys want to come to Impact Wrestling right now, and that's an opportunity for me to wrestle some new people. Slammiversary is a big show, and I'm looking forward to delivering." So it would appear that Eddie Edwards is going to wrestle at Slammiversary. That's not a complete confirmation that that's going to happen, but it looks more than likely that Eddie Edwards is going to be back. He is going to be ready in time, which I said before, it is Impact Wrestling's biggest show this year. So I struggled to find a situation where Eddie Edwards wouldn't wrestle, even if he's 75%. I think he would do it anyway because that's the kind of guy that Eddie Edwards is. As of right now, if I had to predict, probably going to be W. Morrissey, and to be honest, probably going to be W. Morrissey winning, but that's just my opinion on that one. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these Impact Wrestling news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, AEW, WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.